Welcome to another edition of Daily Airline News, focusing on the tragic loss of Air India Flight 171. I'm Jeffrey Thomas, and I'm delighted to say, joined once again by my co-host, Richard Godfrey in Frankfurt. Good morning to you, Richard.
And good afternoon to you, Jeffrey.
Yeah. I'm not in Perth today. I'm in Geraldton, Western Australia, up the Western Australian coast. A little closer to MH370, I think. But let's get focused on Air India 171. This episode is called Facts or Speculation. It's episode 193. We've had a huge number of viewers' comments for and against, and we're going to run you through those. The most popular, or the ones with the most likes, start off with R. Severajan, MBA, 43 likes. The important point is these gentlemen are defending the honour of the pilots who fought till the end to save the aircraft. Multiple events is leading to the conclusion that it wasn't pilots' fault. Heroes shouldn't be vilified, even if it takes 1,000 episodes. Keep it coming. Ray Camus, 6866 with 32 likes. If one was suspicious of why the contents of the initial report was so limited, yet it chose to report 2 sentences between the captain and co-pilot without context, one could speculate that it is economically of greater value to pin the crash on 2 dead pilots than on poor maintenance by Air India. Jacqueline Jacobson, 6789 with 14 likes. This makes absolute sense. Why would a suicidal pilot try to relight the engines and make a mayday call? Thank you, gentlemen, for exploring this topic. CWK090 with 18 likes. Gentlemen, as a retired airline captain and former 787 pilot, I appreciate your efforts in not blaming the pilots. India's AAIB has a lot of information that they chose not to release for some unknown reason. The complete CVR would be invaluable to the investigation. And Mark Charilak, 9654, with 8 likes, undeniable logic and a very clear explanation of pilots' actions. Fantastic channel. Thank you, guys. So, Richard, some very supportive comments and some good thoughts there.
Yeah, lovely comments. And despite India's AAIB leaving out a lot of information that they have and could have published, we have tried to meticulously put together the evidence from the FDR, the ATC transcript, the ADS-B data, and the CCTV footage in a methodical and logical sequence of factual events. Most viewers take the time to watch the episodes and download the 17-page report before commenting or asking questions. However, there are some who don't bother to watch any of the episodes or read the report.
They do. Now, Richard, some great questions and observations from Andre Ferreira, 8841. Good day, gents. From the CCTV video, I cannot accept there was any suicidal behaviour of either pilot. AI-171 flew a near perfect last 30 seconds with almost no roll or pitch deviations. I would guess the captain would have taken control and flown to the end. Handing a crippled aircraft back to a junior pilot with low speed and altitude would be very irresponsible, unethical, and just wrong. This was not a normal handover flying situation. Richard.
It certainly wasn't a normal handover flying situation. And I agree, it is most likely that the captain took over control as the pilot flying as soon as the emergency situation occurred, i.e. when the RAT was deployed, and that was just after takeoff. And as you say, in a very dangerous situation with little altitude and little airspeed. And I think you're right, the captain would have almost certainly retained control of the aircraft and not handed control of the aircraft back to the first officer. The captain and first officer would go through the memory item non-normal procedure for a dual engine shutdown, and this would have been recorded on the CVR and is available to the investigators. I cannot understand why this crucial evidence has not been published by the AAIB India.
From Marie Curie, 7491. Great work, thanks. I am no expert in these matters. What I am is a lawyer with 37 years of legal practice, with a well-honed instinct for finding the true facts. I wrote quite a few episodes ago that the preliminary report was suspect, and previously that the report was delayed while the company were desperately thinking up an explanation.
Yeah.
Richard.
I'm sure your 37 years of legal practice entitles you to find the preliminary report suspect, and also to conclude that the Indian authorities were considering how to spin their report for the media and the public.
Yeah. Patrick Lockerbie, 4308. If either pilot was trying to crash the plane, we would have seen some degree of yaw, bank, pitch variations as the pilots fought each other for control. We did not. The airport surveillance video shows that apart from obvious loss of thrust, the plane was flown in a smoothly controlled manner. Richard, another one.
Yeah, I'm also convinced that the aircraft was being flown to make the best out of a bad situation. The pilot flying, as we said, is most likely the captain, and he was flying with skill, and both pilots were focused on dual engine relight, and they were successful. The engines, the engine systems, and the fuel were not permanently faulty or damaged because the engines were both relit successfully. The cause of this emergency situation lies elsewhere.
From DMWM771, he says, a big German magazine Focus reporting today about Richard's 17-page report. Richard, have you seen that?
Yes, and I've read the article in the Focus magazine, and it cites our report at length. And the article also mentions that Mike Andrews, a lawyer representing many of the victims' families, is preparing a case for compensation. And Andrews has demanded the FDR and CVR data in full in order to reconstruct the fatal crash in detail. I hope he is successful.
From Brandon M. Cheyenne Howard, 1077. Whilst we do not know the mental state of the captain, common sense would ask why, when his father will require medical bills, funding and care, did the son choose to murder passengers and crew on live TV for his dad to watch? No payout, medical bills unpaid, and a stain on the family. That's a pretty profound observation, Richard.
Yeah. Well, the captain was well known for caring for his father, especially since the death of his mother. And the captain took a leave of absence to care for his father when his mother died. And I think this is the act of a responsible and caring son. And since the captain's death in such tragic circumstances, I hope, and I'm sure, the other family members will take over this caring responsibility for his father, and that the Indian authorities and Air India give the families of all victims their full support.
Yeah. But Richard, we do have some views against our synopsis. From Flynn Bourne, if the captain had wanted to make it look like an accident because they didn't want to be disgraced, it would only work on either takeoff or landing. There are easily explainable set of circumstances that can still point to the captain. I don't understand why you are writing this off so easily. And following that, from Mr. Channel 19, he replies, speculation. And Flyborn responds to Mr. Channel 19, absolutely speculation. These guys are writing it off as impossible using fairly spurious arguments. You like that, Richard? The facts as they stand still support a deliberate act. There's also a scenario where it is not deliberate, but I think they're cherry-picking the facts to suit their argument and writing off a plausible option. Richard, that's pretty heavy duty.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, Flimborn, you're wrong. I find both these viewers have not listened to our episodes and not read the 17-page report. So we're not writing off anything easily. In fact, some people have complained that we did not come to a conclusion much sooner. And our arguments are not spurious. A spurious argument is flawed, misleading, or based on false reasoning. So if you believe that, then will you please point out the flaws and the misleading statements and the false reasoning in our 17-page report? And we're also not cherry picking. If you believe we have missed certain cherries, then what is your evidence for an intentional act by the captain? I frankly find these comments arrogant and opinionated, and these viewers are obviously in denial.
Richard, at Pirate 3599 is also not convinced. There is lots of guessing here, too many assumptions, he says. Your thoughts?
Yeah, well, then list the facts that you disagree with and list the assumptions that you believe are false. Why don't you, Pirate 3599, also write a rebuttal of our 17-page document point by point? Instead, you make assertions without foundation because you don't have any arguments to make in favor of your finger pointing at the captain and the blame game you're playing.
So back to the folks that do support our synopsis. Guy, UK, the preliminary report is garbage. Innuendo towards the pilots, but with no timed details. The idea that one pilot tried to crash the plane with the other sat next to him trying to save it, totally different to previous crashes. The video even looks like a pilot doing his best to fly the aircraft. Secondly, suicide at low altitude and speed was not a guarantee. A bit more luck at the crash site would have resulted in multiple survivors, including the flight crew. And that's a very good point too, Richard.
Yeah, I mean, they were very close to the achieving thrust to be able to save the aircraft. So it could very easily have turned out quite differently. But unfortunately, time ran out on the pilots trying to save the aircraft. And I find the preliminary report is a thinly veiled attempt to blame the pilots.
So from Nick, Victor Romeo Sierra November Mike, something that stands out to me as completely unaddressed with regards to those statements taken from the CVR is that there is a massive ambiguity surrounding the context. My first concern is surrounding the sentence, "Why did you cut off?" My concern is that we have no idea whatsoever that the FO was asking this of the captain. It's entirely possible to me that the FO could have plainly been speaking out loud to the aircraft system itself, given that he would have been completely focused on his pilot flying duties. Why did you cut off? Could have been the FO's response to either his engines or his instruments, or both cutting off. The captain explaining "I did not" would be an utterly normal human response to perceiving he was being asked a question that made no sense to him. Or the captain could have been referring solely to his instruments and meaning that his instruments didn't cut off like the FO's had done. just a train of thought that's been niggling at me the last 48 hours or so. I also want to take the brief opportunity to thank you both for doing an absolutely incredible job with your coverage of this accident, in spite of all the ridiculous and unjust negativity you have both been receiving from people online. Ignore the haters and idiots and keep doing what you're doing. Love the channel. Thank you both again, from Nick in Ireland. Nick makes a very good point with the
Yeah,
cut-off, doesn't he?
he does indeed. Excellent comment. And I think we've all made similar statements to our mobile phones when in the midst of a conversation and the connection is lost. Why did you cut off? And I also run some fairly complex software for my research, which relies on a good internet connection. And it can run a process thousands of times through millions of data sets quite successfully. And then all of a sudden, there's a database query where the internet connection times out. And I say to my computer, why did you cut off? Um, we, we do not ignore the haters and idiots, however. We try to answer them. Of course, they're usually not listening because they don't want an answer. They just want to make a point or score a point.
And we should also add that we do encourage everybody to make comments. And as one of our viewers highlighted the other day with a great quote, there are no stupid questions. There are just stupid people who don't ask questions. And so we do encourage those questions. But if you're going to have a crack at us, then perhaps you should check the facts first. So, Richard, let's conclude with these two comments, which to me summarise the majority of the comments. Ray Camo, 6866 with 101 likes. If one was suspicious of why the contents of the initial report was so limited, yet it chose to report two sentences between the captain and co-pilot without context, one could speculate that it's economically of greater value to pin the crash on two dead pilots than on poor maintenance by Air India. Now, of course, I've already mentioned that comment, but I'm mentioning it again because I think it's a very powerful comment. So from Vince Tourette's 1597 with 52 likes. Once again, from an engineer, thanks for your professional and thorough analysis on the matter. You are brilliant, and your altruistic effort to dig deep into both MH370 and AI171 flights is outstanding. Please keep on digging no matter what. Richard.
Yeah, I think absolutely great comments, and they both sum it up very well. And we will keep on digging, and hopefully the truth will come out one day on both MH370 and AI171.
Yeah. But one of the things we should mention too, the 787, like the Airbus A350, they're both very heavy electrical aircraft, not 787 more so. But they are very complex aircraft, and that complexity has led to an incredible safety record for the 787 and the A350 from Airbus, and up to the Air India crash, as we've said many times, carried a billion people on 5 million flights. That's an extraordinary record over nearly 14 years. It's an amazing aeroplane, and that's because of the complexity of it and the backups, the multiple backups. But that's why it becomes a bit confusing to understand exactly what is going on. But Richard does an enormous amount of research using Boeing technical manuals and other related data to come up with the scenarios that we do. That be right, Richard?
Yeah, the only authoritative source is from the manufacturer. So in this case, Boeing for the aircraft and General Electric for the engines. Of course, there are authorities like the FAA or the NTSB, and there's useful data out there. But the pure speculation in many YouTube videos and social media are just not helping.
No.
And when people actually deny what the Boeing document says, then, I have to say I can't help you. You need to read the document, and you'll come to the right conclusion. But
Mm.
denying that the Boeing document is correct is ridiculous in my view.
Yeah, indeed. So, viewers, that's all we've got time for today. We're going to be back again tomorrow, covering 171. And so, Richard, thank you once again for all your work on this particular episode. Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
And viewers, please do subscribe to us if you're not already. Please do like us. Please keep those wonderful supportive comments coming. We really do appreciate them. And of course, thank you for those wonderful questions. We've had almost, I think, 1,000 questions from this last episode. It's impossible for us to respond to them all on this video, but we do read them. I can assure you we do read them and we do appreciate them very much. So we look forward to your company tomorrow, and please do tune in. Take care.